Alright, here's a little block print video I put together on my process.
So we're going to be working on creating our own blocks for block printing. And just recall that blocks more have to do with the raised surface than the actual indented surface of what you had been doing in your styrofoam. So here's one of my block prints, and you can see I actually glued it on some of that mat board, and this is the plate material. I found the plate material to actually be better than the mat board material because it started to do this, and I actually glued this stuff down with hot glue and ended up having to re-glue it all the time because the water would separate the layers. So this worked out better, and believe it or not, I glued this down with a glue stick. So it seemed to work out just fine. You could use hot glue or whatever, but be careful with some of the adhesive glues because on foam, it will actually eat away at the foam. So I was able to use just water-based glues to glue this on, and for the most part it worked. So I made a couple more. This one is compressed paper, and it was decent enough, but the first run I did, it lifted my paper that was all folded up. So if you're interested in doing paper or other type of organic materials, be sure that you seal it with some sort of acrylic medium. So I decided to use some regular squares just to create my grounds, the beginning part, and I played a little bit with some materials I found lying around, some things for, citrus, that uses sort of the mesh netting, and I created some mesh prints, and I'll show those to you all later. So those are the block prints, and you've got a lot of different variables. So my first couple of prints were just playing with what it means to turn my block pattern to create an interesting pattern with the smaller elements. I tried the kind of fishbone one, which I really liked, actually blank more than I like with the background color on it. And what this allows me to do is to then tile more paper. Let's see if I can show you with the other papers to see what the larger print can look like. So I'm really just experimenting with the notion of the repeat and the notion of the block itself, and seeing what those patterns can look like in a larger format. These are my samples. These are not my final products, but it's giving me a lot of information. And this one, I printed a background color, and then I printed this individual pattern on top. And I turned it around in different locations, and I even added just painted blue on my roller before actually stamping it onto the pad, and I didn't like it as much. So here are those results. You can kind of see them. And I would actually next cut these out so that I don't have to fold down my edge. Then I can see what this repeat is. Our goal for this project is to create a repeat in a smaller block that when repeated on one sheet or in, collection, as we call tiling, we create a larger composition. So the next thing I'll show you are the samples. I'm trying to figure out my color. So this is me painting on top of the paper in the Bristol board. And I just wanted to see what it would look like. And I found an old stamp, and I just used that stamp with different tones of color to see what it would look like on different layers, trying to figure out my palette. And I just broke it up into boxes so that I could keep track of perhaps what an interesting color tiling might look like. Okay.
So up next, I'm just going to show you my inking when I was using my brayer and my roller. So I tried to get a really even inking, and everybody seemed to have some variable issues with this. So just keep in mind, it's trying to get a really nice thick coat. I'm actually using all acrylic paint for this. And I found that the best way was after a couple of inkings, it took me a little bit to build up my ink on my plate. I was able to really get a good result. And I tried both pressing the block into the paper as well as positioning it on the paper, flipping it over, and then rubbing the paper with a wooden spoon onto the block. So I did both sides. And I couldn't tell you the one that was better. I just would pick the one that seems to either be the easiest for you to manage in a clean way, or the one that you feel gives you the best results. So I've done orange, here's my yellow, And I did the brown, and I did about 7 of each, double on both sides, and I'm going to cut these in half, and then actually trim them down for when I'm going to print my layers on top.